The roar of the Atlantic greeted Adrian as he stepped out of his car, his expensive leather shoes crunching on the gravel. The salty air of the remote Nova Scotia fishing village filled his lungs, a stark contrast to the sterile air-conditioned boardrooms of the tech world. Adrian was a rising star in the industry, a young engineer who had transformed his startup into a billion-dollar empire. But success had come at a cost. The sleepless nights, endless deadlines, and unrelenting pressure had burned him out. Adrian had come to the village seeking quiet, far from the hum of machines and ceaseless pings of his phone. The town was quaint, almost otherworldly, with its weathered wooden houses, docks lined with colorful fishing boats, and the ever-present cry of seagulls. Late one afternoon, while walking along the pier, Adrian noticed an old fisherman unloading his catch. The man moved with practiced ease, his wrinkled hands deftly sorting fish into crates. His face was bronzed and weathered by years of sun and sea, but his eyes twinkled with a quiet contentment. "Hey there," Adrian called, hesitant. "Need a hand?" The fisherman chuckled. "City hands like yours? You'd be filleting your fingers instead of the fish. But you're welcome to sit and chat if you'd like." Adrian joined him, awkwardly perching on a crate. The fisherman introduced himself as Thomas, a lifelong resident of the village. Their conversation began with small talk but soon delved deeper. Adrian shared snippets of his life, how he'd built a tech company from nothing, his relentless drive to succeed, and the emptiness that followed. Thomas listened, nodding thoughtfully. Then he spoke. "You've been chasing something your whole life, haven't you? But have you ever stopped to ask what you're running toward?" The next morning, Thomas invited Adrian out to sea. Despite his initial reluctance, Adrian agreed. The small fishing boat rocked in the gentle waves, its engine humming as they ventured farther from shore. Thomas handed Adrian a fishing line and taught him how to bait a hook. Hours passed, and the sea stretched endlessly around them. Adrian felt strangely at peace, surrounded by nothing but water and sky. Then, with a sudden jerk, his line went taut. "I've got something," he shouted, his heart pounding. "Hold steady," Thomas called, grinning. Adrian struggled against the pull, his arms burning as he fought to reel in the fish. When he finally hauled it aboard, a gleaming mackerel, he felt a surge of triumph. Thomas clapped him on the back. "First catch. Feels good, doesn't it?" As the day wore on, they spoke of simpler things, Thomas's family, his love for the ocean, and the village's traditions. Thomas shared how he'd once dreamed of traveling the world but had chosen to stay because the sea gave him everything he needed, peace, purpose, and a deep connection to nature. Their serene day took a sudden turn when dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The wind picked up, and the waves grew choppy. Thomas's face hardened as he steered the boat. "Looks like a storm's coming. Hold on tight." The storm hit with ferocity. Rain lashed against them, and waves crashed over the boat. Adrian clung to the railing, fear gripping him as the boat pitched wildly. Thomas shouted over the roar of the wind, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to Adrian's panic. "Trust the boat," Thomas yelled. "And trust yourself. We'll get through this." After what felt like an eternity, the storm began to subside. Soaked and exhausted, Adrian marveled at Thomas's composure. "How were you not afraid?" he asked. Thomas smiled. "I've weathered many storms, lad. Fear doesn't help. Trust and patience do." Back on shore, as the sun set in hues of gold and crimson, Adrian and Thomas sat by a crackling fire. Adrian stared into the flames, the day's events replaying in his mind. "You know," Adrian said, "I've spent my whole life trying to control everything, my career, my time, my future. But out there, I had no control. And yet, we made it." Thomas nodded. "The sea teaches you that life isn't about control. It's about balance, knowing when to act and when to let go. You've built something incredible, Adrian, but success isn't about how fast you run. It's about finding fulfillment in the moment. In the days that followed, Adrian spent more time with Thomas and the villagers. He learned to mend nets, gut fish, and even navigate the boat. For the first time in years, he felt alive, not because of an achievement or accolade, but because of the simplicity and authenticity of the life around him. When it was time to leave, Adrian felt a pang of sadness but also a renewed sense of purpose. He shook Thomas's hand firmly. "Thank you for everything." Thomas smiled. "Remember, lad, the sea's always here if you need her." Back in the city, Adrian made changes. He restructured his company to prioritize his employees' well-being and his own. He traded endless meetings for moments of reflection and connection. And he kept a photograph of the Nova Scotia shoreline on his desk, a reminder of the old fisherman who taught him to live in the moment. From the story, it is evident that life's storms will come, but fulfillment lies in finding balance, embracing simplicity, and trusting the journey. Success isn't measured by how much you achieve but by how deeply you live.